Welcome to i-TUTOR IAS Academy Biology NCERT series. Here we will be covering Unit 10 of Ecology portion of Class 12th NCERT. It consists of Chapter 13, 14, 15 and 16. Today we will be starting with Chapter 15 Biodiversity and Conservation. Biodiversity. The rich variety of living organisms with which they share this planet never cease to astonish and fascinate us. The common man would find it hard to believe that there are more than 20,000 species of ants, 3 lakh species of beetles, and 28,000 species of fishes, and nearly 20,000 species of orchids as well on our Earth. Immense diversity or heterogeneity exists not only at the species level but at all levels of biological organization, ranging from macromolecules within cells to biomes. Biodiversity is a term that is popularized by sociobiologist Edward Wilson. Just take a note of this name, Edward Wilson, to describe the combined diversity at all levels of biological organization. The most important of them are genetic diversity. It is nothing but the diversity at genetic level over its distributional area. Now let's understand this with an example. The genetic variation shown by medicinal plant Raufolmia vomitaria. So just take a note of this name, that is growing in different Himalayan ranges, might be in terms of its potency and concentration of active chemical rasparin, which is used for various medicinal purposes. India has more than 50,000 genetically different strains of rice and 1,000 varieties of mango. 1,000 varieties of mango. Now let's see species diversity. What is species diversity? It is nothing but the diversity at species level. For example, the Western Ghats have a greater amphibian diversity than the Eastern Ghats. It's due to various other factors, but it has greater species diversity of amphibians in the Western Ghats than Eastern Ghats. Now the third one is, this is one, genetic diversity. Now we have seen species diversity. Third is ecological diversity. It is nothing but the diversity at ecological level. For instance, in case of India, with its desert, rainforest, mangroves, coral reefs, wetlands, estuaries, alpine meadows, has a greater ecosystem diversity than a Scandinavian country like Norway or Finland. According to the International Union of Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, IUCN, we are all familiar with this. IUCN data 2004, the total number of plant and animal species is slightly more than 1.5 million. It is 1.5 million. But we have no clear idea of how many species are yet to be discovered. There are more species which are yet to be discovered as well. Some extreme estimates say that it is around 20 to 50 million, but a more conservative and a scientifically sound estimate by scientist Robert May says it is around 7 million. Okay, moving on to the next page. More than 70% of all species recorded, out of the recorded species, more than 70% are animals, while plants including algae, fungi, bryophytes, gymnosperms, angiosperms comprise no more than 22% of the total. Among animals, plants are the most species rich. Among animals, insects are the most species rich taxonomic group, making up more than 70% of the total. So among animals, if you take 10 animals, then out of that 7 is insects. The number of fungi species in the world is more than the combined total of species of fishes, amphibians, reptiles, and mammals. The biologists are not sure about how many prokaryotic species there might be. The problem is that conventional taxonomic methods are not suitable for identifying microbial species, and many species are simply not culturable under laboratory conditions. If we accept biochemical or molecular criteria for delineating species for this group, then the diversity alone might run into millions. So here is a small diagram which shows the species diversity of invertebrates, vertebrates, and the plants. Now, although India has only 2.4% of world's land area, its share of global species diversity is 8.1, almost 4 times. That is what makes our country one of the 12 mega diversity countries of the world. Now let's discuss patterns of biodiversity. Latitudinal gradients. So this is point number 1, latitudinal gradient in patterns of biodiversity. The diversity of plants and animals is not uniform throughout the world. In general, species diversity decreases as we move away from equator to the poles. So, this, if we consider this is Earth, from equator, this is equator to the poles, the species diversity decreases. Okay, with very few exceptions. Tropics, latitudinal range of 23.5 degree north to 23.5 degree south harbor more species than the temperate or polar region. Colombia, located near the equator, has nearly 1,400 species of birds. So Colombia, which is located in the equator, has 1,400 species of birds, while New York at 41, which is not at the tropics region, has only 105 species of birds. And Greenland, on the other hand, at 71 degree north, has only 51 species. So it's a evidence which shows that the species diversity decreases as we move from the equator to the poles. Moving on to the next page. Ecologists and evolutionary biologists have proposed various hypotheses. So what is the reason behind this decrease of species diversity from equator to the poles? The biologist has few reasons for it. Let's check it. Some most important ones are speciation is generally a function of time, unlike temperate region subjected to frequent glaciations in the past. Tropical latitudes have remained relatively undisturbed for millions of years, thus had a long evolutionary time for species diversification. So the first point is speciation, that is development of various species is a function of time. So it requires time, and the temperate regions are subjected to more frequent glaciations in the past, while the tropic regions have almost remained undisturbed for many years. So this gave them a more time period for them to evolve and the species to develop. The second point is tropical environment, unlike the temperate ones, are less seasonal. So we know that we are from India as a tropical country, we have less seasonal variation compared to a Scandinavian country like Norway or Finland. Relatively, it is relatively a constant and more predictable climate and seasons that we have. Such constant environment promote niche specialization and lead to a greater species diversity. And the third point is there is more solar energy that is available in the tropics, which contribute to higher productivity. And this in turn might contribute indirectly to greater species diversity. So the reason for the species diversity in the equator rather than at the poles or the temperate region is three. One is the speciation as a function of time, and the tropical regions have relatively remained undisturbed for many years, which give them a long time period for the species to evolve. And the second point is, first point is this, and second point is tropical environment, unlike the temperate one, are less seasonal, so it is more predictable. This give the species more time to develop and to evolve. And the third one is the solar energy. Greater the solar energy, higher the productivity, and this in turn contribute to greater species diversity. The second point is species area relationship. Alexander von Humboldt observed that within a region, species richness increased with increasing explored area, but only up to a limit. The relation between species richness and area for a wide variety of taxa like angiosperm plants, birds, bats, freshwater fishes turned out to be a rectangular hyperbola. So if you draw a graph like this, which shows the relationship between species richness and area, it will be a rectangular hyperbola. That is, there is an increase, you can see an increase, then it almost remain constant. After a certain point there is no increase, but as you start with the area, there is an increase, then it almost flattens up. So it is a rectangular hyperbola. It is species area relationship is given by Alexander von Humboldt. Just take a note of this name. Now, importance of species diversity to the ecosystem. A stable community should not show too much variation in productivity from year to year. It must either be resistant or resilient to occasional disturbances, which can be natural or man-made. And it must also be resistant to invasions by the alien species. Okay, so what is a stable community? A stable community should not show too much variation in productivity from year to year, and there is no variation in productivity from year to year, and it is either resistant or resilient to the occasional disturbances, which can be natural or man-made, and it must also be resistant to the invasion by the alien species. David Tillman found that the plot with more species showed less year-to-year variation in total biomass. He showed that in his experiment, and increased diversity contributed to higher productivity. So we are discussing the importance of species diversity to the ecosystem. So we have seen what is a stable community. A stable community is almost resilient and to the alien species, and it is resilient to the occasional disturbances, and it has almost same productivity from year to year. And David Tillman found that more the species, less year to year variation. So as there is more species, less year to year variation. Now let's see river popper hypothesis by Stanford ecologist Paul Ehrlich. So in an aeroplane, consider an aeroplane to be an ecosystem with all its parts joined together by thousands of rivets. Rivets are the species. If every passenger traveling in it start popping a rivet to take home, causing a species to become extinct, it may not affect the flight safety, proper functioning of the ecosystem, that is the proper functioning of the ecosystem initially. But as more and more rivets are removed, the plane becomes dangerously weak over a period of time. Furthermore, which rivet is removed may also be critical. Loss of rivets on the wings, like the critical ones, the key species that drive the major ecosystem functions, is obviously more serious threat to the flight safety than loss of few rivets at the seats or at the windows inside the plane. So this was a example that was hypothesis that was used by Paul Ehrlich, who is a Stanford ecologist, to show the importance of species diversity to the ecosystem. Moving on to the next page, loss of biodiversity. So from the previous discussions, we have seen the importance of biodiversity. Now let's see what are the reasons of loss of biodiversity. The biological wealth of our planet has been declining rapidly, and the accusing finger is clearly pointing to human activities. The colonization of tropical Pacific islands by humans said to have led to extinction of more than 2,000 species of native birds. So 2,000 species of native birds was extinct due to the colonization of tropical Pacific islands by humans. Some other examples of the recent extinctions include dodo, which is a bird from Mauritius, quagga from Africa, thylacine, Australia, Stella sea cow of Russia, 3 subspecies of tiger, Bali, Javan, and Caspian tigers. So these are the few examples. Just take a note of these examples. This can be used for your mains answers as well. Presently, 12% of all bird species and 23% of all mammal species, 32% of all amphibian species, and 31% of all gymnosperm species in the world face the threat of extinction. So 12% of bird species, 23% of mammals, 32% of amphibians, and 31 species of all gymnosperms are under the threat of extinction. Now, sixth extinction, already 5 mass extinctions have gone by. Now the sixth extinction presently is in progress. It's different from the previous episodes. Let's see how. The difference is in the rates. The current species extinction rates are estimated to be 100 to 1000 times faster than pre-human times. So it is 100 to 1000 times faster than the pre-human times, and our activities are responsible for this faster rates. Ecologists warn that if present trends continue, nearly half of all the species on Earth might be wiped out by next 100 years. So already 5 phases of extinctions are over. The 6th one is in progress, and it is going on at a very fast rate of 100 to 1000 times due to human activities. And the ecologists are warning us by next 100 years, half of the species on Earth might be wiped out, which is a very serious issue to be looked upon. Now, moving on to the next part. Loss of biodiversity in a region may lead to decline in plant production, lowered resistance to environment, lowered resistance to environmental perturbations such as drought, flood, and other causes, increased variability in certain ecosystem processes such as plant productivity, water use, and pest and disease cycle. So loss of biodiversity in a region may lead to all these factors: decline in plant productivity, lowered resistance to environment perturbations, natural ones, and increased variability in certain ecosystem processes such as plant productivity, water use, pest and disease cycles. So just take a note of these points 1, 2, 3. Now, causes of biodiversity losses. The accelerated rates of species extinction that the world is facing now are largely due to human activities. So, from the above discussion, it is very clear that human activity is a major cause of the accelerated species extinction. There are four major causes. It is often pet named or called as evil quartet. It's a very important concept, or it's a very important term. Just take a note of it. The evil quartet, which is considered to be the four major cause of species extinction in the world. One is habitat loss and fragmentation. This is the most important cause driving the animals and plants to extinction. The most dramatic examples of habitat loss come from tropical rainforest, once covering the 14% of Earth's land surface. These rainforests now cover no more than 6%. More than half of the tropical rainforest is lost. When large habitats are broken up into small fragments due to various human activities, mammals and birds requiring large territories, and certain animals with migratory habitats are badly affected, leading to population decline. So, among the evil quartet, the most important and dangerous one is habitat loss and fragmentation. Moving on to the second point, or second evil in the evil quartet, is overexploitation. Humans have always depended on nature for food and shelter, but when need turned into greed, it leads to over-exploitation of natural resources. As Mahatma Gandhi said, the earth has all resources for everybody's need, but not for anybody's greed. So when need turn into greed, it leads to species exploitation, which lead to species extinction. Many species extinction in the past 500 years were mainly due to over-exploitation by the human beings, like Stella sea cow, passenger pigeon, etc. Now, the third evil in the evil quartet is alien species invasion. Alien species invasion. When alien species are introduced unintentionally or deliberately for whatever purpose, some of them turned invasive and cause decline or extinction of indigenous species. Indigenous species are those species which are found only in a specific habitat. So when an alien species is introduced to into a new area, maybe intentionally or unintentionally, some of them turn invasive, which causes an extinction of the indigenous species. Let's see some examples. Nile perch was introduced into Lake Victoria in East Africa, led to eventually the extinction of ecologically unique assemblage of more than 200 species of cichlid fish in the lake. And another example is carrot gas. We are all familiar with this, Parthenium or carrot gas, lantana and water hyacinth, that is the Ecornia crassipus. These are all alien invasive species which led to the decline or extinction of indigenous species. Illegal introduction of African catfish, Clarias garipinus, for aquaculture purpose is posing a threat to the indigenous catfish in our rivers. So the third evil in the evil quartet is over, that is alien species invasion. Now moving on to the fourth and the last evil in the evil quartet, that is co-extinction. When a species becomes extinct, the plant or animal associated with it in obligatory way also become extinct. For example, when an host fish species become extinct, its unique assemblage of parasite also become extinct. It also meet with the same fate. So there are 4 points in evil quartets. There are 4 evils. One is habitat loss and fragmentation. Second, over-exploitation. Third, alien species invasion. Fourth, co-extinction. Okay, now we are seeing the reasons for biodiversity loss. Moving on to the next topic, biodiversity conservation. The need for the biodiversity conservation can be grouped into 3 categories: narrowly utilitarian, broadly utilitarian, and ethical. The narrowly utilitarian arguments for conserving biodiversity are human derived countless direct economic benefits from nature, which include food, cereals, pulses, fruits, firewood, fiber, construction material, industrial products like tannins, lubricants, dyes, resins, perfumes, and products of medicinal importance. More than 25% of drugs currently sold in market worldwide are derived from plants, and 25,000 species of plants contribute to traditional medicines used by native people around the world. Bioprospecting, it's an important term which is usually seen in the question papers, and it can also be used in your mains answer writing, which is nothing but the exploring molecular genetic and species level diversity for products of economic importance. Nations endowed with rich biodiversity can expect to reap enormous economic benefits. The broadly utilitarian argument says that biodiversity plays a major role in many ecosystem services that nature provides. The fast dwindling Amazon forest is estimated to produce through photosynthesis 20% of total oxygen in the Earth's atmosphere. This is the broadly utilitarian. We have seen narrowly utilitarian. Now the ethical argument for conserving biodiversity relates to what we owe to millions of plants, animals, and microbe species with whom we share this planet. Philosophically or spiritually, we need to realize that every species has an intrinsic value. Now, how do we conserve biodiversity? When we conserve and protect the whole ecosystem, its biodiversity at all levels is protected. We save the entire forest to save the tiger. This approach is called in situ conservation. So this is one way, in situ conservation, wherein we protect the whole ecosystem, its biodiversity at all levels is protected. An example can be taken as an entire forest is conserved to save the tiger. And when there are situations where animal or plant is endangered or threatened, organism facing a very high risk of extinction in the wild in the near future, it's a definition of endangered or threatened, and need urgent measures to save its extinction, exist too, that is off-site conservation is needed. That is, we take the organism outside its ecosystem and protect it. Now let's see some more points about in situ conservation. In situ conservation. On a global basis, this problem has been addressed by eminent conservationists. They identified for maximum protection certain biodiversity hotspot regions with very high levels of species richness and high degree of endemism. Endemism, the definition is species confined to that region and is not found anywhere else. So endemic species is that species that is confined to that region and is not found anywhere else. Total number of biodiversity hotspots in the world is 34. 3 of these hotspots, Western Ghats and Sri Lanka, Indo-Burma and Himalaya cover our country's exceptionally high biodiversity regions. Although all biodiversity hotspots put together cover less than 2% of Earth's land area, the number of species they collectively harbor is extremely high, and strict protection of these hotspots could reduce the ongoing mass extinction by 30%. So just conserving these biodiversity hotspot, which make up only 2%, it make up only 2%, but it protects or it reduces the ongoing extinction by 30%. Okay. In India, ecologically unique and biodiversity rich regions are legally protected as biosphere reserves, national parks, and sanctuaries. These are examples of in situ conservation: biosphere reserves, national parks, and sanctuaries, where the organism or the species is protected in its natural environment or ecosystem. In many cultures, tracts of forest were set aside and all trees and wildlife within were venerated and given total protection. Such sacred groves are found in Khasi, Jaintia Hills of Meghalaya, Aravalli Hills of Rajasthan, Western Ghat regions of Karnataka and Maharashtra, Sarguja, Chanda and Basta regions of Madhya Pradesh. In Meghalaya, the sacred groves are the last refuge of large number of rare and threatened species. So we are all familiar with sacred groves, which are known in different names in different regions, like Kaava in the southern area or other names in the other parts of the country. Moving on to the ex situ conservation. This is another important thing where the threatened animals and species are taken out of their natural habitat and placed in special settings where they are protected and given special care. When the critical condition comes, or when the animal is in population is in critical condition, we do the ex situ conservation. Zoological parks, botanical gardens, and wildlife parks, safari parks serve this purpose. Now, gametes of threatened species can be preserved in viable and fertile condition for long periods using cryopreservation techniques. Eggs can be fertilized in vitro. Plants can be propagated using tissue culture methods. Seeds of different genetic strains of commercially important plants can be kept for long periods in seed banks. So these are all examples of ex situ conservation. Biodiversity knows no political boundaries, and its conservation is therefore collective responsibility of all nations. The Historic Convention on Biodiversity, the Earth Summit held in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, called upon all nations to take appropriate measures for conservation of biodiversity and sustainable utilization of its resources. In a follow-up, the World Summit on Sustainable Development held in 2002 in Johannesburg, South Africa, 190 countries pledged their commitment to take active involvement by 2010. A significant reduction in current rate of biodiversity loss at global, regional, and local levels. So this is all about this chapter, biodiversity. I hope most of the points are clear for the prelims as well as some of the points for the mains perspective. Thank you for watching. For more related contents, do like, share and subscribe.